All right, y'all, thank you for tuning in to Dixieland and the Proletariat. We're going to talk about Southern working class history and current events through a leftist perspective. Make sure to like us on social media at Dixieland and the Proletariat or Dixie Prol. And if you want to give your wages to a bunch of rednecks, then subscribe to our Patreon page at patreon.com/DixieProl. Got a lot of cool stuff to give you, including CDs, stickers, a cookbook, Discord server, Twitch stream, and exclusive episodes. We also have a Spotify playlist with some great artists you also check out. The podcast is brought to you by Camel Silvers, vaping, living at home, pushing people in the swamps, and always Jeff Bezos. Shout out to our new Patreon subscribers, Allison, HeatX Death, Hendo, Comrade, Kametka, Trey, Jim, Ryan, Coyote Jim, and Michael. Our monthly Patreon surplus goes to groups that are run by and or help marginalized people directly. As always, I'm Nelson, today with...
I can't get my shit together.
Well, my shit's working.
I guess I'm the only one that's gonna introduce myself. Kais is here.
And our guests this evening on this clusterfuck of a show are...
Jacob Morrison.
Hey, and this is David's story with the Valley Labor Report.
The Valley Labor Report's back. Yay!
Yeah.
All right, y'all. Well, how's everybody doing? This is the last time. It's been a while since we saw you guys.
I'm doing great, brother. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Yeah, I've been working. I'm doing real good. Appreciate you having us back home.
No problem, man. I like the beard. I'm digging it.
Thank you.
Hell
Yeah,
yeah.
you know,
About 3 days growth.
I'm always trying. Every time he does the goatee thing, he does the goatee thing a lot, and every time he does, I try to pressure him into getting the beard back because I've got serious beard envy. As you can tell, I am not capable of such a feat. It has been about a week and a half since I've shaved, and this is what this is what it looks like for me. So.
But you have a luscious head of hair. See, mine fell out and went to other parts of my body I don't want hair and then onto my face.
Yeah, that's true. I do. I have not lost my hair yet, but I'm still only 24. So and my granddaddy, who is similarly pretty hairless on his face. He lost his hair on his head pretty early. So this not very good omens for me. And we're very similar in a lot of other ways too. So I don't know. I'm just kind of crossing my fingers that in that one way I didn't take after him.
It's gonna come slowly but surely. First you think you're in your early 20s and you're like, oh, it's not bad. There's a little bit of hair falling out in the shower, and by the time you're like 27, it's like, my God, what happened? And then you're 30 and it's all gone. Dun dun dun. Anyway, y'all. So we've got some big news coming out of Bessemer, right? So obviously, y'all, we got you on because y'all are our union experts. So the Amazon plant in Bessemer is calling for a vote, right? So if y'all could just talk about what y'all have heard, what's going on there, because this is a big national story that kind of exploded. And I don't think anyone expected it to come out of Alabama. So if one of y'all want to take the lead and we can talk about this, because it's something definitely everyone wants to know about.
Yeah, well, I don't think that y'all, I don't think, I looked through your podcast episodes. I don't think y'all have talked about this before. So maybe some of your listeners might not be aware. So David, do you want to kind of just take it from the top and you want to start us off, like what, kind of lay the foundation there for that, what's going on at that Bessemer facility?
Yeah. So me and Nelson was talking before everybody got on, like we were saying, I was at the post office about a month or 6 weeks ago and got a call from a brother that I was working on the Bernie campaign with, wanting to know what was going on. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And he said, apparently the RWDSU had filed for an election at Amazon. And so I immediately hung up the phone and said, well, before I hung up the phone, I said, let me call you right back. And I called Jacob and said, I don't know what the hell is going on, but this is going to be big. This is going to be humongous because they've tried to unionize Amazon up north unsuccessfully for years, and the fact that they're calling for an election before anybody ever knew about it was like, I mean, I can't even. I'm still at a loss for words at how historic that is, and the fact that the amount of cards that they had to have signed. But so yeah, I guess the short of it is they had what they call a hot shop, to where people, I mean, a lot of us organizing in labor right now has gotten a lot of tips because of COVID-related issues, with workers feeling overwhelmed because of the stress that they're under, that their bosses are putting them under, with allowing customers not to wear masks, like what you had seen at your restaurant and talked about, and really just overall shitty worker health and safety on the floor. And so yeah, they had gotten some cards signed, and then I from my understanding, talking with organizers there, it just blew up. And it's what we call a hot shop, because all of a sudden, as soon as people on the floor start hearing about it, everybody wants to join. And it's like a snowball effect. And apparently that's what happened there. Originally, they were wanting, I believe the original bargaining unit was not going to include drivers. It was not going to include part-time workers, which is typically every union drive I've ever been associated with. We don't include all of these people because it's more difficult, because you need 50% in an election plus one to win the election. And a lot of times the part-timers don't want to join because they don't see the benefit in it, because they're part-time and they're really
transient.
Yeah, exactly. So they were shooting for 1,200, and then and as always, we went through the same thing with Boeing in South Carolina. The company wants to water down the vote as much as possible, so they start saying, well, we want you to include these people, we want you to include these people, and the list grew from 1,200 to 6,000 workers there in Birmingham. And the organizer said, well, fuck yeah, and plopped out. And you've got to have, in order to call for an election, it's important to clarify, you have to have 30% of the workers not just show interest in the campaign, but actually have had to assign their name and said, yes, I want to be represented by RWDSU. And that is the most difficult part of everything, is getting the people to sign what they call authorization cards. And so 30% of 1,200, I'm thinking they probably have 300-400, maybe 500 workers signed cards. And less than 24 hours later, they said, yeah, we'll take your 6,000 total. So, I mean, it was like that. I mean, I was literally on Messenger with Jacob going, either these people are absolute fucking idiots, or they have got an amazing, amazing drive. And it turns out that they've got an amazing drive. And
yeah, I mean, that's, I mean, that really, it's 30% of 6,000 is like the size of the original entire bargaining unit, and they were able to do that. When David was talking about, they kept increasing the size, and finally it became just basically wall to wall, except for drivers. Like every single Amazon employee in this warehouse is covered in the bargaining unit except for drivers, and so it's about 6,000 employees. It's wall to wall, and so to even get the election, they would have had to have something like 2,000 cards signed, minimum 2,000 cards signed, which is more than the original bargaining unit was. And so when Amazon proposed that bargaining unit size, RWDSU said fine, and they plopped down more than 3,000 cards. A majority of this bargaining unit has already expressed in writing that they want RWDSU to represent them. That is insane. That is seriously amazing that they were prepping for, because of course we knew Amazon was going to do this when they proposed a 1,500, 1,200, 1,500 person bargaining unit. Everyone knows any employer is going to try to flood the unit. And a lot of times what unions will do is they'll try to fight it. They'll try to keep the unit small because they reckon that they can win with these full-time workers, these workers who are wanting to be in there for the long haul, where, like David said, the part-time workers are going to be more transient. They're going to be difficult to organize. They're going to be difficult to get them to see the value in the union, because a lot of these folks, they're looking at this like a McJob, right? They don't want to retire off Amazon. They want to work at Amazon, get some, and it be a stepping stone. Full-timers, the logic goes, they see it more as like a career, and they want to invest their time and effort into making it better. So a lot of unions will try to keep the bargaining unit small. RWDSU said, no, screw that. We're gonna prepare to organize all these workers so that when they propose to flood the unit, we're gonna be ready. And by God, they were ready with 3,000 cards signed. That's just unbelievable. And I was talking to Randy. Randy's the president of the Mid-South Council of RWDSU, and he said that every single one of those cards, except for 100 of them, were signed by and given to organizers in person. Only 100 of them were online authorization card signups. The rest of the 3,000 plus were, an organizer handed an employee the card, they signed it and gave it back to him. I mean, that kind of commit, and since October of last year, they have had organizers standing out there at shift change every single day except for Martin Luther King's birthday and Christmas. Every single day, every single shift change, RWDSU has had organizers at the Amazon gate talking to workers, educating them on their rights, what they could have with a union, what they can do to make their jobs better. And that kind of commitment and, organizing and work that the real honest to God work that they're putting in is really impressive. And I just want to expand a bit on what David was talking about, the hot shop. This is a brand new facility. It just opened in March of last year. It's not even a year old yet. And I was talking to Josh, the lead organizer on the campaign, and he said that they have never seen a facility become a hot shop that quick. They've never seen a facility become a hot shot that quick. Usually, at the beginning, and I know this firsthand because I was in a restaurant that was reopened fairly, within the past year when I started working there, and it was like my first year working there was great. Everything was smooth. Management acted like they cared about the employees to a certain extent. And the employee, we had a good staff, and the longer that I was there, the more it went to crap. And that's kind of the way that a lot of these things go. It starts off good. This didn't even start off good. They said that they got that Daryl and Jennifer, they said that they reached out to RWDSU only 3 or 4 months after the plant opened. 3 or 4 months, and workers were already having issues there. 3 or 4 months. I mean, that's insane. That's insane that a company can't keep their employees happy for just 3 or 4 months. It's ludicrous. And And so when they reached out to him, they started talking, and Josh said that he had to admit that he was kind of reticent about it. He was like, I don't know. I mean, this is a brand new shop. This is Amazon. Can we do this? But folks, the rest of the folks in RWDSU were like, yeah, I think we can give it a shot. And he said they started piling up cards, and he was like, we're going to do this. We're going to freaking do this. So, it's, it's just, it's so inspiring, talking to these workers. And, I think one of the things that's really cool about this is how worker driven it is. A lot of the other big organizing drives that have happened down in the South, like the UAW drives, have been kind of staff driven. And this one is really, most of the people that these Amazon workers are seeing are poultry plant workers that are also represented by the union, that are Black, that like everybody else in that community, that that can have, like, they've got testimony of like, this union has helped me, and I am a worker not paid by the union, and I want I want you to have what I've got. That's I think that's important. It's not somebody that's like getting commission off of this stuff. It's like workers that are employing their fellow workers to to organize and have a better life, and showing them the way. I'm just, David and I we're so excited.
Yeah, and let me just clarify one thing real quick, because Jacob said something that kind of pissed me off, and I don't think it's correct. He said, well, it's surprising that it would happen this quick. And I don't think it's surprising at all that it happens this quick, because anybody that works in the South knows we work at a little bit slower pace. No matter what industry you're in, we're not jumping ass for nobody. But Amazon has taken exploitation to a fucking level that nobody's ever seen before in their lives, with modern day wage slavery, and I think when you bring that kind of, even though Alabama wasn't looked at as a very it's looked at as more of a non-union friendly state. When you bring that kind of shit into Alabama with us, you get pushed back pretty quick, unlike a lot of other bootlickers across the nation. So I would say the workers there in Birmingham knew that they were getting screwed from the get-go. I mean, whenever we were talking to the brother a couple of Saturdays ago, he was talking about when he goes to the fucking bathroom, he's on the clock, and he has to deduct from his personal time the amount of time it takes him to go to the fucking bathroom. Shit like that is just,
dude, that's
crazy. That's a higher level of oppression than any of us have seen in the workplace before. So the fact that it's kind of surprising is not surprising, because even in the restaurant, we ain't gonna pull that bullshit.
Yeah, well, and about the breaks, another thing to add is that their lunch breaks are like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And these warehouses are huge, like football fields long. And the break room can sometimes be on the complete opposite end from where you wrap up the first half of your shift. And so if you've got to walk all the way across like 2 or 3 football fields to get to the break room to start your to eat your lunch, and maybe you've got to heat up your lunch. Jennifer was talking about having to scarf something down in 5 minutes and having to use the rest of her lunch break to get back to her workstation, and then jumping right on the clock. And of course, your lunch break begins when you leave your workstation. It doesn't start when you get to the break room. It doesn't start when you start eating after you finish heating up your food. And she said that Amazon has even told them to at sometimes to not bring things that have to be heated up, because it because of like lines at the microwaves. And so, you're having to eat a cold lunch, which everybody does sometimes, but like, every now and then I want a hot lunch, I want to heat up a pizza or something. And Amazon was telling them not to do that. And then when they can do that, of course, that eats into their time. And it's just, how
the fuck do you build a brand new facility and not put in a fucking elevator? I mean, a brand damn new, supposedly state-of-the-art, technologically intense facility, but yet fuck the workers. We're not going to put it in an elevator. Those motherfuckers can walk. What kind of shit is that? Thank God I can cuss on this podcast because I can get it out here, unlike what we can on our show.
Now, real quick, because I forgot y'all like to. I love the information and the energy in the story, but I forgot y'all like to rant. So there's a lot of stuff that y'all said that the people who are not in unions, I don't think. I mean, I don't understand. I don't know. Kai and Tommy may be experts on unions, and I would never know it. But I mean, you've explained it before, but really quickly, before we get into more stuff, the card situation, could you just give a brief rundown of what do you mean, sign the cards? But then also real quick, just the conditions that y'all have heard of at the Amazon facility, because I remember a few years ago, there was an expose, some journalists went undercover to work in an Amazon warehouse, and they were talking about the lunch issue. Like y'all said, they have so many minutes for lunch, but then they have to go through a metal detector to make sure that that no one's stealing anything. And then by the time, it's one metal detector for everyone in that shift that has lunch at that time. So by the time they get to be able to eat, they only have 5 minutes, and they have to run back to the line, and they only have a certain amount of time to go grab stuff. And one of the journalists was saying that every time she went to go grab something, she would get shocked by some faulty wires or whatnot. But it just sounds like it's just horrible working conditions. So one, basically, who is this union? Because acronyms, and I know a lot of us don't know what that union is. Second, what do you mean by the card signing, and how do they get 3,000 people to sign these cards? And then what have y'all been told about more into the conditions, and why was this a hot shop? Why did it get really quickly? Why did this become a thing?
Really quickly.
Yeah, real quickly.
Yeah. So I'll do the A card real quick.
I mean, the card thing, the card thing,
that.
Obviously quickly, because that's probably really simple, but the other stuff take more time.
Yeah. So real quickly, the A card, what we call an A card is an authorization card. In order for a union to come in to that facility or any facility, the way that the law is written now, that union has to have authorization cards. And an authorization card is a card that a worker in that facility signs their name, their phone number, their home address, their email address, and their signature at the bottom that says, yes, I want RWDSU to represent me. Once you get 30% minimum of A card signed, then the union can petition the National Labor Relations Board and say, we have 30% interest in a union in this facility. The National Labor Relations Board will then come in and conduct a official hidden ballot election. Generally speaking, you don't go to the NLRB until you've got 60. Our union requires us to have 70%. 60 to 70% is a standard, because you know that the company is going to scare some of these people off and you'll lose them on the election. So that it's almost like a double election, which you were wanting to talk about. The PRO Act will cover that later on.
Yeah, and that was a good explanation of authorization cards, and RWDSU is stands for the Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union. They are a division of the UFCW, which is the United Food and Commercial Workers Union. So RWDSU is just the name of the union that these workers want to organize with, and like we said, those conditions, the breaks, the lack of breaks, the time being docked for taking bathroom breaks, things like that. We talked to Jennifer Bates and Daryl Richardson there are a couple workers in the facility. We talked to them on our show about stuff like that, and those were some of the things that they really highlighted. Another thing that they highlighted was just the quotas. It's really, that they didn't really have kind of meaningful metrics that would or they didn't give us anything that would make sense to people that don't work in Amazon. But just my understanding is just it's insane the amount of things that they've got to push out. It's really, really grinding on them. If you don't meet your quotas, then you're subject to retaliation and disciplinary action, and you can be fired. I mean, the turnover at this facility is just huge. It's really, really large. There's a lot of people that even that were part of that signed authorization cards that they're not there anymore, either because they left or because they were fired, just because there's, the turnover. It's such a kind of grueling place to work. Of course, the pay is another thing. They tout that they've got a $15 an hour minimum wage, but I mean, this is a warehouse job. This is a job that, at one point in our history this was a good, this was historically a good middle class. This is like a real job, and Amazon has tried to turn it into, a Mick job, like something that people don't really see as something that will carry them into retirement. And $15 an hour, that's fine and all for a starting wage, but $15 an hour and 30 cents is their average wage. That's the average wage at that facility. And so that tells you, one, that the turnover is so high that they've got a lot of people starting at their minimum wage, and two, that they don't give raises out very often. And that's a problem. $15.
To point out is when we talked to them, they said there's an average of 20 people a day turnover. An average of 20 fucking people a day turnover. In Bessemer, where unemployment is the highest in the state. So you tell me how bad the job is when people are saying they need a job, they want a job, but you got 20 people walking out every day.
Yeah. And I mean, but it's seriously really, really bad that, these folks are, they're being told to accept these working conditions and these wages. And, they also tout their health, their benefits, their health care, their all these other plans. Those are only offered to the full-time employees, which now that they have flooded the unit and RWDSU accepted, full-time employees don't even make up half the unit. Most of these people are part-time. That means most of these people do not have any benefits at all. And, there are some people who have said that they do good to work once a week, half a shift, once every other week, once a month. There are people that have only been called in once or twice a month. And, that kind of instability, that lack of a clear schedule is obviously really, really grating on a person, and not knowing how much you're going to make week to week or month to month. That's not sustainable. That's not sustainable for anybody. I
think it's important to point out that these people are probably treated worse than migrant farm workers when Cesar Chavez was organizing. I mean, it's really that bad, probably worse than the migrant farm workers, because at least they're guaranteed to go to work every day, unlike what a lot of these folks are getting.
There's a lot of stuff.
I mean, I'm just here to listen to all this. I really don't know what to say beyond what the fuck, but I don't know. Anybody else got something?
Yeah, it sounds like for Amazon is shit.
I mean, it's a lot to process,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, shit is crazy. You have to deduct bathroom time from your. That's insane.
Yeah, well, and you think some of these folks are. I haven't heard anybody in the Birmingham one before, but from my reading in previous articles, a lot of these folks are wearing diapers because they've gotten to the point to where they can't. They get docked. They get. not just dock, but they get like the merit system, and they've gotten to the point where if they go to the bathroom, they're gonna get fired. So let's wear a diaper.
I heard about the diapers. I also heard about piss bottles, and I also heard about 55-gallon like drums, like trash cans full of piss, because they couldn't get to the bathroom in time. If they were to like go a little bit over the bathroom break, then they would get doxxed. So they would just piss in water bottles and piss in garbage cans. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah. I mean,
And Jeff Bezos is the richest man in the world.
I mean, and that's how
like a $1 trillion company.
Right. I mean, that's really the thing that really pisses me off. You've got, I mean, kind of surprisingly, the conservative politicians in the state haven't made any moves to really oppose this. They've certainly not supported it, but I have not actually seen any Republican politicians come out in support of Amazon against the union, which is very surprising, because I don't know how closely y'all followed the VW drive up in Chattanooga, but there was a full court press against that union up in Chattanooga. I mean, the damn governor came and he gave the captive audience anti-union meetings to these workers.
And U.S. senators
recorded ads. U.S. senators.
The U.S. senators threatened them too. Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
people
US
telling them
senator
that if
actually
you
threatened to withhold funding for the second plant, the tax breaks for the second plant if they unionize, which is completely against every law in the book, but they get away with it constantly.
Now, Oh, go ahead, Jacob, real quick.
Yeah, no. I mean, it was amazing. So we haven't seen a lot of that, but some of the conservative media folks have been going against it, and it just doesn't. It just, I just can't fathom it. Like, bootlicking for one of the, like, I think he's now the second richest man in the world, and saying that these people, they've got to just accept raising children and having a family at $30,000 a year, if that. It boggles my mind. I can't understand it.
Now, I want to bring up, because with Southern politics and Southern unionization and Southern everything in general, the race always plays an issue in these things. So, and Kai and I went at it with people on Facebook we're trying to say that the South isn't like a monolith that people think, and that it's not just all white people. But also, I was seeing on like Amazon's Twitter and things that we've shared and y'all shared, that it seems like the people really behind this and the organizers behind this are black workers that work at the plant in Bessemer. Because you said they also used to work at chicken plants, which also is majority black and brown workers work at these plants, and so they're used to the union, so they get the Amazon thing, it's going to be better, but it's not. But they have the experience going in and know in the organization to come into the Amazon plant and really get things done. So is that the case? Because like from the pictures that they've shown and from what I've seen, it seems like the workers who organize this are poor black workers that are really sick of this shit.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the Bessemer demographically is 70% black, and the Amazon workforce there is actually 80% black. So, I mean, just if you just pull workers out of a hat there, you're going to mostly get black workers. And so, all the Amazon workers that I've seen, that I've talked to, that I've seen give interviews, they've all been black. And of course, most of the people in RWDSU have been black and brown that I've talked to, that I've seen working on the drive and from the poultry plants and things like that. And so just a funny kind of anecdote is that the AL.com ran an anti-union article where they talked to two anti-union employees that they were directed to by Amazon, mind you. Like, so these were handpicked company men by the company, and they were like, Amazon could have chosen any anti-union worker, and both of them are white. So like, look, you've got, I think that goes to show the strength that the union has there. Like, the only people that would be willing to go on the record against the union are both white in a vast majority black workforce.
Let me go on the record and say that I hope they get their ass beat once the union is put in place. Let me just go on the record and say that they deserve to be kicked in the fucking teeth.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine like, it's yeah, they deserve to be. They need some sense knocked into them.
Scabs deserve to get their heads bashed in. So yeah, no, I feel you.
Yeah, I mean, they need some sense beat into them. I mean, seriously, it's just bonkers.
But I really I'm really glad that we could talk about it, and that's what's happening, because like I said, it's just with the podcast and with everything we're trying to say is to disprove myths of the South that we're a monolithic, majority white, etc. And it's great to know that the workers at this plant from historically black, historically poor county are coming together and unionizing and saying this is bullshit, and showing other people that if we stick together, you know, we can unionize this plant. Because I don't think anyone expected Alabama potentially being the first unionized Amazon plant.
Right.
No,
so,
nobody expected it, and actually, whenever they started talking about it, everybody was talking shit about it, talking about how RWDSU had done this wrong and done that wrong and everything else. So, you know, but what you were asking about really speaks to the community there, and the fact that this being a worker-led campaign, it's not like Jacob said, it's not a staff-run campaign to where they send in folks from New York and New Jersey and everything like this to try to organize. The workers in the community recognize oppression and exploitation, and they collectively decided that they wanted something different. And I think it's the most wonderful thing you could ever have.
Yeah. I think it's really really beautiful. You know, it's interesting that actually both of the anti-union workers that Amazon directed AL.com towards was white, because the organizers have said they told me that actually, you know, of course, bosses during these unionization drives, they're going to try to create division in the workplace, and you know, there's very few more tried and true divisions in the American working class than race, but the organizers have said that that's actually not been kind of the forefront of it. They've said that the biggest division that they're seeing trying to be wedged between in this workforce, which you know, of course, since both of the anti-union workers were white, I'm sure that there's some of that. But they said that the biggest division that they're seeing being trying to be sown is between the young and the old, because the older people in the workforce, and it's funny because they thought going in that the young folks were going to be their base. They thought that the young folks, you know, these are you know, more left-leaning, union-friendly, Bernie kind of type folks, right? And they're going to be our base for this union drive. And the opposite has proven true. The young people are the ones that are a lot more skeptical, and they're going to be the ones that are having to flip. The older workers are actually much more in favor of the union, and the reason for that is because of the working conditions that we talked about. Because the working conditions are so much harder on people with just any kind of age on them. You know, somebody who's 18, 19, 20, 25, they can, some of the people that I've talked to, David and I have been making calls into the facility. And some of the people that I've talked to, they're like, I don't have any problems with the working conditions. I'm fine. And it's a young guy. And he's like, you know, the quotas, I can do the quotas. I don't have any problems getting this stuff accomplished. But, you know, like they're not thinking about, am I going to be able to move this fast when I'm 35 or when I'm 45 or when I'm 55 or when I'm 65? And the people who are those ages, they're thinking about it because they're having to feel it every day. And so they want to be able to slow down a little bit. They want to be able to rest. They want to be able to have these, substantial breaks. And that's like really important to them, where the younger population, that it's maybe a bit less important to them being able to slow down a bit. And so what Amazon is saying is that, they're going to bargain for seniority, the union is, and these old folks who don't do half the work that you do, they're going to get more pay than you will, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it, which is a bunch of bullshit. because for one, like, it's good to bargain for seniority because you want to be able to have more job security when you get older. Your job should be able to, you should be able to age with your job, and the company should provide you should be able to keep enough of the value that you create that you can live a comfortable life, and that goes for inside the workplace as well. But also, unions don't just bargain for seniority. Like, that's not the only thing that goes into a union contract. They also bargain for production bonuses and things like that can go towards the younger people that are like a lot faster and that can meet the quotas and even exceed the quotas. And there are things like that are in union contracts and that are in RWDSU contracts. And so that's one of the things that the union is really trying to get into the head of the young folks who like don't see what the union can do for them. It's like, we're not just going to bargain for seniority. Like, we're going to bargain for whatever you want to bargain for, because that's the union is you. You're going to decide, you're going to elect representatives that are going to sit across the table from Amazon. You're going to elect people that is going to write the contract that you're going to work under. And, you're going to get to vote on it ultimately. So, sorry, I'm rambling a bit.
Jacob, you're like the, oh, my screen disappeared. You're like the union Alex Jones, because like you get on like a rant and you just like, and like
Dude,
you just go super
You should
saiyan.
have to sit across from him every Saturday.
Dave is just like cool, calm, and collective, and you're just like, you like just explode with energy. But no, you brought up a good point. I've been wanting to mention this for a while. Is that like going with we all either have, or in the case of Dave, worked manual labor for a long time, or we have all worked manual labor, or we have our old parents that have worked manual labor. And for me personally, like when people are like, oh, I mean, I don't know how to put this. Young people need to realize that one day you're going to get old. And for example, my father worked manual labor his entire life. Like, he's 68 years old and he shuffles around because he can barely walk. His back is shot. He has sciatic nerve pain. He's had first, second, and third degree burns, I think, on his arm from cleaning fence lines. Like, it's in working with chains and heavy equipment. And it's just like, young people who work in these manual labor jobs and like these trades need to realize that like, you're gonna get old and you're gonna break down, and the only like what's gonna be there to protect you is the pension and the healthcare plans that these unions negotiate for.
Yeah, you're gonna get old a lot quicker
doing
than
those
your
kinds of
peers.
jobs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Kai, we've talked about we have boomer dads that would probably be best friends in another life that have both worked excruciatingly manual labor jobs all their lives, and like I think our dads have like some of the same health issues.
Oh yeah. My dad got dragged behind a horse through a parking lot like when he was 58 or something like that, and just doing his job. His spine is crumbling, like completely crumbling. But I was thinking with what you were saying, that these are brand new facilities and they're not building elevators into them. That seems like an ADA violation to me.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too.
And then as you have a workforce that has, like, if you have the workforce that is older in these situations, that's going to be further violations and like the ADA and stuff like that. So I'm just that it's shocking and not at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say to that. Honestly, I'm sure that they've got some kind of scam worked out to where they put all the handicapped people. They probably hire a quota and put all of them sitting right here, right next to the entrance or something, to where I have no clue. I've not been in the facility to know. All I know is from what the workers have told us.
I know somebody who did office work for Amazon in the Pacific Northwest, and they had to step down from their job because of disability, and the hoops that they're having to go through with the company. They have to basically be not disabled in order to get through the hoops to get disability from the company. And they were constantly fighting for what do they call it? Reasonable accommodations. So one of their reasonable accommodations was to work in an office where they don't have the sirens going off. Like from what I've heard, in these warehouses, they have sirens going off for whatever reason. And they would keep putting them in a position where they couldn't complete their phone calls because there's sirens going off. And it's compounded by their disability. So the reasonable accommodation would have been for them to work in the office space that was in the building, but they just wouldn't do it. they've been fighting with Amazon, I would say, since maybe the first third of the pandemic. So probably like 2/3 of a year by now. They've been fighting just for that.
I mean, one thing that everybody has to understand whenever we talk about all of these, not just government agencies under the ADA, but OSHA, any of these agencies, generally speaking, it's cheaper to work people the way you want to work them and pay the fine once you get caught than it is actually make the accommodations beforehand. So
If you get caught.
If you get caught. So, I mean, it's, it's nothing for them to just completely violate. It's the same way with violating the labor laws during this union campaign. They're going to violate the labor laws because they know it's cheaper just to pay a fine. They'll have to put up a little sign in the break room saying, "Oh, we violated the law." Pay a few $1,000s. I mean, look what Tyson Foods done out in, I think it was North Dakota or South Dakota. It was, it was less than $100,000 for the loss of numerous lives. I mean,
The management was taking bets on who was going to get COVID next.
Yeah, so they're just hedging their bets.
Now, real quick before we go on to the PRO Act, what has been because obviously shit never changes, and you got anti-union busting stuff going on. What has been the blowback from Amazon? Like, what are the tactics that they've been using besides trying to split the generation difference? Like, what have they been doing? I saw one article, they got the city to change the traffic lights to be so people wouldn't stop and like see the organizing or something like that. It's like, could you go into like what? Because we hear like Amazon's like one of the top, they hire like the top union busting firms, right? They somehow got the city government to change the traffic lights, whatever that shit's about. And then obviously they have spies. They've hired like Pinkertons basically to go in and spy to crack down on unionization. So like what has been the blowback trying to unionize from Amazon? What horrible tricks do they have up their sleeves that we need to look out for?
I mean, everybody, I think that's pretty well been covered, but for any of your listeners that may not have seen it, it's been text messages, I think up to 5 to 10 text messages a day. It's been, the flyers in all the bathrooms. It's been the forced company meetings where you have to come in and attend and listen to them talk to you about how you're going to be paying dues, and you're going to be, you're not going to have a say on the job as opposed to, like you've got any kind of say on the job right now. So it's just typical tactics, and then you're talking about the red light. The red light was the Amazon had actually went to the county because the union had a little tent set up there at the red light, and when the light went red, they would holler at the people leaving the facility and ask them if they had signed the card, what have you. And so Amazon went to the county and said, "Hey, speed this red light up to where it don't stay red so long so we can get the employees through." And of course the county said they didn't know anything about the union drive. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. Maybe they were being honest. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Who knows? But the fact that, Amazon's gotten $150 million of our state taxpayer money to build a facility there, I think they should be held a little bit more accountable to what the people in the state want and a little bit less accountable to what Amazon wants,
Y'all don't forget when explaining things, like we have 40-something thousand downloads on every continent. So you have people listening in Europe that, like, from countries that are heavily unionized that want to know, like, what the fuck's going on in America. So please, like, tell us as much as y'all can.
And well, let me clarify one other thing, because something you said is actually not true, and I've heard more than one person say it lately, and that was that Amazon's using Pinkertons to spy. That is correct. I believe it was in Poland where they were using Pinkertons to spy on the employees over there. To our understanding or to our knowledge, I don't know if anybody in the U.S. has started using them, but I'm sure it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
International Pinkertons.
Yeah. Well, I think the light is probably the most like holy crap kind of thing that they've done, but they've as far as the messaging that they've tried to push, the the age division has been really strong, and the dues, they're really trying to push that the dues are bad, paying dues is bad. It's kind of like that Delta had, like, oh, you could pay $700 in dues, or you could buy a new PS5 kind of thing. It's like exactly that kind of thing. They put up an anti-union website that was one of the talking points, is like, oh, paying dues means you have to go without, and go without those groceries or this game or whatever. And I think probably one of the biggest things is that they're really trying to push that the union can't guarantee anything being higher wages, better working conditions, better benefits, or anything like that, which is like technically true. If you win a union, there's no guarantee saying that you're going to have better wages or better working conditions, but what would be the mechanism by which you would get worse working conditions? Because they're saying that's an option. They're saying an option is that, maybe you get better wages and better working conditions. Maybe it stays the same. Maybe it gets worse. Okay, let's talk about.
But that somebody needs to point out that that's actually illegal, that you cannot regressively negotiate. So whatever you have right now, say, whenever the union drive started, the company can't come in and say, we're going to give you less. That's against the law. That's called regressive negotiations, and it's illegal. So what they're saying is completely falsified. But no, and I hadn't heard anybody really point that out yet. So I kind of wanted to point that out.
Yeah, that's a good point, David. I had totally forgotten that for the past few months. But yeah, regressive negotiation is illegal. But even staying the same, what would be the mechanism by which your wages and working conditions would stay the same? That means that you and your coworkers would have to vote to ratify a contract with your wages and working conditions being the same. And I've got confidence and faith enough in those workers down at Bessemer that I believe that they want more, and I believe that they know that they're worth more, and I believe that they know that they can get more. And so I don't believe that they would vote to ratify a contract for the same wages and working conditions that they're working under right now. I think that they want more, and I think that they're going to get more, and they'll get more by electing representatives from each of the departments to write language that they're going to work under, and then they're going to work on that language for the contract with the company. And then once they reach that tentative agreement, they're going to send that out to the membership. They're going to read it and they're going to vote on it. And if the wages and working conditions are sufficient to satisfy a majority of the people in the bargaining unit, then that's going to be their contract. And so that's, the democratic nature of it is something that the union is really trying to push back with. It's like, look, Stuart Applebaum, the president, international president of RWDSU, he's not the one that's going to be ratifying your contract. Big Mike, the poultry worker in Decatur, he's not going to be ratifying your contract. Randy Hadley, the Mid-South Council president, ain't going to be ratifying your contract. It's going to be you. You're the only one. The only people that can vote on this contract are people in the bargaining unit. And so if it's sufficient for them, then that's what they'll work on. Then that's what they'll work under.
Fuck yeah.
And one thing that we hadn't pointed out yet that I think is really important to point out, and it's something that is overlooked a lot of times when you start talking about unions, and that is the equality that a union brings into the workforce that is not there. And I think that probably speaks to why the only two white folks that they could get to speak out against the union is whether AL.com recognized it or not, was showing their white privilege and the fact that not only in a county with 70% black folks, in a business where there's 80% black folks, these white motherfuckers think that they're going to be the next supervisors, and they're going to lick enough ass to get their position a little bit higher as opposed to all the black folks around them. And one thing that it brings, in my local, the president before me for 12 years was a black guy. Love him to death. The women, I've got 3 women that serve on the executive board with me. I don't know that there's any gay folks in the plant. There may be. Don't really care one way or the other. But the point is, a union brings in the equality that is missing, because it stops the privilege from happening any longer, to where everybody's going to make the same, whether you're black, white, brown, red, whether you're gay, lesbian, trans, queer, whatever you want to be. Everybody makes the same, because it's the contract, and everybody negotiates equally on that equal footing. And that to me, that's the beautiful part of a union, is it does away with all of this. I'm better than him, he's better than her, she, what have you. So that probably speaks more towards those people's privilege, and really is a slap in the face of AL.com, who is generally in the pocket of the Democratic Party in the state, to allow something like that to happen. I think it's a slap in the face of all the working class people in Alabama. I'll never go to their website again after that shit, because it was racist for one. It was classist for two. But it shows the elitist liberals in the state of Alabama, these Democrats, they're all going to brunch now that Biden's elected. No problems no more for the working people of the state of Alabama. Everybody should have it good, which is a fucking lie.
Yeah, and I mean that equality thing. I think that's like real important. Like teachers in Wisconsin, there was a study that came out a while back that showed that before Act 10 passed in Wisconsin in 2011 under Scott Walker, there was a 0% gender pay gap among teachers in Wisconsin. 0. A decade after Act 10, there is now an 11% pay gap between male and female teachers in Wisconsin. 11% after the destruction of collective bargaining in the state of Wisconsin in the public sector. You've got this enormous wage gap between men and women. And what, did women suddenly become 11% worse teachers in the intervening decade? I don't think so. But there was one more thing that I wanted to mention about the union busting stuff that was really, really disgusting. And I'm glad that I remembered it. My friend, Luis Leon with, he's a freelance journalist with, and he reported this out with the American Prospect. I think he was the first one to report it out. Amazon has hired 300 to 500 contract workers since the campaign began. And so they don't actually work for Amazon. They work for Amazon hired a company ostensibly, and so these are ostensibly not Amazon employees for only $13 an hour, which is below Amazon's stated minimum wage. So you've got people in this plant making less than $15 an hour, and these people who are not Amazon employees and thus not in this bargaining unit are being and who were hired straight out of prison. The Amazon has preyed on their vulnerability. A lot of these people are straight out of prison, don't have any other job prospects or anything like that, and so they're going to take this $13 an hour job, work in an Amazon facility, and they are being used basically as anti-union walking billboards. They cannot vote in the election. They are not in the bargaining unit. And Amazon management, which is ostensibly not their management, let's remember, because these are ostensibly not Amazon employees, which is why they can still say they've got a $15 an hour minimum wage. And their Amazon management is getting a bunch of vote no paraphernalia and slapping it on these workers' vests. And, one of the workers that Luis talked to said, I don't really know anything about the union. I don't really know anything about the election, but management told me to wear this. And what can I say? This management, they can fire me, even though they're supposedly not my management, even though, Amazon management is supposedly not there. I'm not their employee technically, but, of course the workers know what's the real deal. And the real deal is that Amazon, they work for Amazon. Amazon can fire them. And so if they don't wear this vote no propaganda and be their walking billboard, then they lose their only source of revenue. And which is, really just disgusting, preying on these people's vulnerability straight out of prison. They can't get any other jobs, and they're just using them to, attack the prospects of their fellow workers to have a better life. It's just, there's like nothing lower than
Yeah.
than that. It baffled me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's just the same dirty tricks that they're just gonna keep pulling, and it's fucking crazy. Like we're all just like in awe. Like we know like it's bad, but then like when it's laid out like this, it's like fuck.
Yeah, that's one thing. That's one thing that the listener should really pay attention to. For somebody like me that's been listening to this show for over a year and a half now, no one is ever at a loss for words on this show. There's always something going on, and every time we mute our mic, it's complete dead silence because everybody's just sitting there going, "What the fuck?"
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, dude, it's disgusting.
There's nothing to say. There's
Yeah.
nothing for us to say about it.
Dave, I want to say that your rant about equality was beautiful, because what I tell people, I was like, all right, so we got the Valley Labor Report coming on. Like I tell, like not like we all know, because most of us we've all seen each other before. But I was like, man, like this dude Dave up in Huntsville, like it's so cool because he looks like a Trump supporter, but like when he talks, it's like left wing, like super pro union stuff, and it's just like it's really beautiful. And I thought that your rant was great.
Well, I mean, I think that speaks to what the labor movement can do, being raised in a union household and being surrounded by that kind of talk every day. So, yeah.
It's also really nice that someone with like a thick Southern accent like says that, like talks about like that's just white privilege and those motherfuckers, and I was like, hell yeah. It's just it's nice because like I said, Kai and I went at it with shitheads on the Facebook page, and it's nice to
Yeah, it's not often I see somebody who's like you who says things that's not gonna immediately make me go, oh, I'm in danger here.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, we've got a regular listener, brother Joe from I'm not exactly sure where he's out of, but he was a steel worker for like 40 years and now he's retired, and so he tunes in every Saturday morning. And I don't know that I've ever heard a thicker Southern accent, but man, he loves to talk about the union. He'll call in and tell us a story about beating the boss, and I enjoy it. I love hearing from Joe.
But that's important that you brought that up, because Joe is a co-worker. My dad worked with my dad for 30-something years as a steel worker, and he's the exact same way I am. So that kind of speaks to whenever you have that union mentality, it goes into your offspring.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to why a lot of us recognize that if we can get unions in our workplace, that we can change the world that way, not through politics, but through working class solidarity.
Yeah, and I mean Jeb Miles is the same way, brother, in the Iron Workers 477. They're a sponsor of the show, and man, Jeb's got some good politics. he's a good union brother, and a little thing to kind of lighten the mood. Joe, the steel worker, we had a rally back in November with the Labor Council. And he comes up to me and he's like, well, man, Jake, I'm just kind of disappointed. And I said, oh yeah, well, I was hoping the turnout would be a little bit bigger. But he was like, no, man, ain't not a single damn American union made car in this damn lot. And they're supposed to be union folks. What the hell they doing? They driving them imported vehicles. Well, we back in my day, we didn't let a damn import in the union lot. You bought foreign cars, you had to park in a foreign lot and walk to the hall. And
oh man. So well, we talk about politics though. We want to say that we hope that some sort of progress will come outside of politics, but politics does, because laws and shit influence this, and we all understand, the people listening, people on the Taft-Hartley Act, right? That the union busting federal legislation that was the veto was overturned, and back in the Truman administration, and it's basically was a death nail to the union. The union movement declined ever since. So what is happening now with the could you guys talk about the PRO Act? Because I've been saying that like we need to overturn Taft-Hartley for a long time now, and maybe Bernie might have mentioned it once or twice, but like, what is the PRO Act and how does this help revitalize the American labor movement?
Yeah, well,
so Joe's going to talk about the PRO Act, and generally I bitch about everything legislative and turn it into politics, but I think this is one case where, you know, we've got to do it one way or the other, as much as I hate fucking politics.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the PRO Act is PRO Act's real good shit. I mean, when we pass the PRO Act, it's going to be the biggest overhaul of labor law in a half century. I mean, it's going to overturn Taft-Hartley. I mean, the first thing one of the things that's like really relevant to us is it overturns right to work laws nationwide. And, you know, I know that, like you said, you've got a bit of an international audience, and certainly you've got a large non-union audience. And so, you know, it's worth explaining it really quickly exactly what right to work laws are, because a lot of folks don't even, I've even met union folks don't even know exactly what it is. They reckon it means at will employment, which it doesn't. They go hand in hand, but it's not the same. Right to work laws just they forbid a union security clause from being put into a collective bargaining agreement negotiated by a union and an employer. A union security clause is a clause that says any worker in the workplace has to pay at a minimum representation fees, which are, I mean, it's like taxes. You can't just opt out of taxes in your in your city or in your county or in your state or in your country. You have to pay your taxes. And so when you're in a workplace that's represented by a union, I reckon you ought to have to pay representation fees, because you get, whether or not you pay the fees, you get the benefits, you get the higher wages, you get the better working conditions, you get the lawyers, you get all these things. And so you get that one way or the other, and I reckon you ought to have to pay for it. I reckon you ought to have to contribute to the gains that you're seeing from the union. And right to work laws forbid that to be it disallows that from being put in a contract. And you know, it's pushed by freedom of contract people, it's pushed by free market people, but this is a totally free market mechanism that we're talking about. This is two totally private entities, a union, a group of workers, and an employer negotiating over the contract that they're going to be working under. And the government is stepping in and saying, no, you can't agree to that. It's totally hypocritical, but that's how you know that the free market, free contract movement is completely ideologically bankrupt. And really what it is, it's about destroying worker power and building up power for the ruling class, the owning class, the wealthy elites. So that's, you know, one of the things that it'll do. It'll also, one of the things that we mentioned earlier, it will, I don't know. Am I too ranty, Dave?
God damn, man, you drag shit out. I've never in my life.
Well, the rest of it's not going to be that difficult, because I think right to work. Well, a lot of folks don't understand what right to work is, David. Okay, it's worth explaining, I think.
I enjoyed the explanation. I mean,
yes, I agree. I agree.
I knew it like banned the closed shop, but I think that like people,
every one of y'all can kiss my ass.
Back to what we were talking about, the authorization cards earlier. David talked about how the process as it exists now is basically like 2 elections. You've got to have people write down that they want to be represented by RWDSU to even get the election. Well, under the PRO Act, once that passes, then all you got to do to get a union in is to have 50% plus one of the workforce sign cards saying that they want to be represented by the union. You don't have to do 2 elections. You only have to show that 50% plus one want a union once. And so I think that's very important. Another thing that it does is it guarantees first contract within a year. A lot of companies will negotiate in bad faith and drag out contract negotiations for a really long time, and 50% of union elections that are won still don't have a contract after the first year. And so under the PRO Act, what's going to happen is you're going to have higher penalties for negotiating in bad faith, and you're going to have, if it comes to it, binding arbitration that the government will oversee to ensure that a fair and equitable first contract is received. It'll also increase the penalties for union busting. Currently, there are technically penalties for union busting. If you fire an employee, you might have to hire them back and pay back wages, but that's it. That's the only penalty. And the back wages are only the difference between what they would have earned at the company that they were fired from and what they currently earned. So if they go get another job, then they've only got to pay the difference between what they made at the other job and what they would have made there. And so if they get another job that pays better, they don't have to pay them anything. They have to offer them their job back, but they don't have to pay them anything. That's hardly a penalty at all. And so so when you engage in union busting under the PRO Act, you're going to have not only back wages, you're going to have to offer them their job back, but you're going to be imposed steep fines and potentially supervisors who engage in illegal union busting activity will face criminal penalties in addition to the company being levied with fines.
And I think that's important to point out, because right now a company can tell their supervisors to go out on the floor and harass workers and try to get them to not join the union, and it all falls back on the shareholders that have to pay. You know, it's just like the police, where we see police killing black folks in the streets nowadays, and the city winds up, the black folks that are in the city have to pay for the transgressions of the police officers. And that's the same thing that happens here. But with the PRO Act, it actually holds that person personally responsible for their actions. So it expands beyond those shareholders and beyond that company having to pay a simple fine. It can make that supervisor civilly liable for what he done, which is extremely important.
Yeah. It's really important, because it's you're going to start putting the onus on the person to actually behave legally, and I think it's important to behave legally because criminal liability is there when you're talking about elections for public office. That's accepted. We know that if you threaten a person outside of the ballot box and say, if you vote for the Democrat, I'm going to beat your face in, you're going to be criminally liable. Like, that's a crime, and rightfully so. The same should be the case for union elections. And so the PRO Act would make that so. Another thing that it does is it makes legal secondary strikes and boycotts. One of the big things that the Taft-Hartley Act did, and I think this is probably one of the biggest things for increasing the solidarity and the power of the labor movement, but because one of the things that the Taft-Hartley Act did was it made secondary strikes illegal. So, let's say if people at a widget factory go on strike, and part A for the widget, that they've got a factory. If they want to support the widget factory workers, they might go on strike too, to put pressure on the company, even though they're not at the company where the workers initially went on strike. You can have people in the supply line stop production or make slow down production to help to benefit their fellow workers, even if they're in different shops. That's illegal right now. Like, it's illegal to freely walk off the job if you're not in direct conflict with your employer. I can't walk off the job right now because I've got a dispute with another employer for how they're treating their workers. That's illegal. That's insane. That is insane to infringe on my ability to do with to do with my body what I want. And so the PRO Act in that way increases our freedom, and I think that's really important, because before Taft-Hartley, secondary strikes, solidarity strikes were really common, and they were really powerful because you start looking at building the road towards a general strike when you start talking about people in a supply line going out on strike or engaging in work stoppages in solidarity with one another. You start expanding the bounds of your solidarity beyond your own workplace. Just making the bounds of solidarity within your own workplace is difficult enough, but expanding it beyond that is basically illegal now. And so I think that it's important to be able to expand the bounds of our solidarity beyond our workplace and start building a real regional, statewide, national, and international labor movement. I think that's most of the misclassification of workers. I think that's the last thing that I wanted to talk about. And so Prop 22 just passed in California. I think everybody knows about that, where it legalizes gig work. Basically, it says that Uber drivers, folks like that, they're independent contractors, and that's right and that's lawful. This also happens a lot in the construction industry. You'll get 3 or 4 or 5, 6, half a dozen subcontractors to the people that are actually doing the work. Well, under the PRO Act, if you're working for a company, you work for the company and you can form a union under that company. No matter how many bullshit subcontractors there are, or independent contracting, whatever, you can form a union if you work for the company. It institutes the ABC test, but it's just basically a common sense kind of thing. If you're tied to a company, then you're an employee and you can form a union with that company. And so I think that's important as well.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, and one thing about that needs to be brought up, because just about a year ago here in Coleman, your favorite place, Nelson, that I always hear you talk shit about, we had a company up here that subcontracted the roofing on one of the buildings, an industrial building. And then that person subcontracted it out to a group of undocumented workers. Well, it gives you this arm's length where the company says, well, I didn't know that I subcontracted it out to them, and I didn't know that they hired undocumented workers. The problem was they had a 15-year-old undocumented worker, 15 years old undocumented worker working on that roof, fell through and died. And that company was not held liable for that because of all this horseshit subcontracting. And so it does away with their ability to have that arm's length contract where they are not held liable for the actions of other people. So I think that's very important, especially in this state, because you see a lot of these companies that'll subcontract out constantly undocumented workers, and they're exploited. And then like Wayne's Farm or somebody like that says, well, I had no clue. It was, it's their fault. It's not our fault. And they know exactly what the hell's going on.
Yeah, I mean, the eyes are really on Uber and Lyft with this kind of stuff, but this is a really, really entrenched practice in the construction industry, and our brothers and sisters in the iron workers and the electrical workers unions, they know this firsthand, how really destructive the practice of subcontracting is in the construction industry, and how much employers want to expand that into other industries. I mean, Prop 22 is coming for you. I mean, it's that's what they want to do, that for all of our jobs, to make themselves richer and make ours poorer.
That's a good slogan. Prop 22 is coming for you. You should copyright that and make that a banner.
Thank you. Just
make that a slogan
just now.
All right, y'all. Well, we've been going at this for a while. Tommy, Tyler, Kaiser, you got anything y'all want to say?
No, I'm just really thankful that y'all showed up so that I can, I don't know about any of this shit. I've been out of the loop for 10 years, so thank you.
Yeah, I felt like the fucking audience there. Y'all killed that shit.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah,
I learned a lot. This was amazing.
Yeah.
What's the next step? What is?
Oh yeah, when's the?
Yeah, the vote is at the end of March 29th, ain't it, Jacob? Hey, and let me get this on the air before y'all kill this also, because if anybody out there has been listening and thinks that the union is good for them, both Jacob and I organize in our unions, not through AFGE, through the Machinist Union, and through the IWW. And for people that are in restaurants or in service industry that say, well, I've always heard we can't get a union in our place, it's an absolute lie. They're fucking lying to you. Call us, email us. Nelson will put our contact information in the show notes, and I can promise you we will get back with you and help you any way we can, get a union in your shop. That's extremely important.
I'm privy to info from a fan down in Mobile who is working at one of the shipbuilding plants, and they're switching from aluminum to steel, and the Steelworkers Union is going to want to move in, and he actually has become pro-union just by listening and more to the left just by listening to the podcast. So
awesome.
That's been dope, and I've turned him on to y'all and other people to talk about unions and stuff. But so hopefully, I keep telling him, I was like, hey man, whenever you're ready, I got the guys ready to talk to. So hopefully that'll happen. But
Yeah, I mean, I just want to reiterate that, and like he said, we can both organize with AFGE, Machinists, IWW, but also both of us are really pretty. I think we're pretty embedded in the labor movement in Alabama. We know folks all across the state, all across the South, in dozens of unions. I mean, if you don't want to or can't organize with any of those three unions, that's not a barrier to reaching out to us. We know lots of folks, and we can we'll put you in touch with who you need to be put in touch with. But for the Amazon union, the voting started on February 8th. It's a mail-in ballot, and it ends the last day to have your ballot in the Birmingham National Labor Relations Board office is March 29th. It's got to be there by close of business March 29th. They'll start counting the ballots on March 30th. It'll probably take a few days because there's going to be so many ballots. But that's the timeline on that. And then after that, they're going to start working towards negotiation of their contract. They're going to start working towards actually getting their better wages and working conditions. Like I've said a couple of times, they're going to elect representatives, and they're going to work on the language, and then they're going to vote on the contract. And that's what those workers are going to be doing. RWDSU, they're going to be going after more shops. They're going to be organizing more Amazon facilities.
Hell yeah.
And I think that I imagine once they win, some other unions will be turned on to Amazon facilities in their area, and they'll think that it's more doable. And I think that I think that once they win, it's going to be the shot heard around the world, and Amazon is going to be pretty unionized pretty quick.
That'd be awesome. I know personally in my family, it's been the nurses unions, so they've definitely helped with pay and staffing rotations is a huge deal. My girlfriend has seen that personally, how going from Alabama to a unionized state has helped dramatically with rotations. And while she was overworked during a pandemic in Alabama, when she got to a unionized state, the staffing rotations were so much better, and it's a lot less stress on medical workers. But all right, y'all. So David, Jacob, thanks again. Real quick before we go off, before I do the sign off and Tyler does this thing, where can our fans and where can anyone who's interested find y'all and listen to y'all?
Yeah, we're on all the social media. The Valley Labor Report. Twitter is the only anomaly. We're at Labor Reporters on Twitter. Everywhere else, we're the Valley Labor Report. We're on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, stuff like that. If you want to support the show, we'd really appreciate it. Patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. We're on a radio station, and it costs money to buy that airtime. So, the more money that we get from listeners, the less we have to rely on advertisers, and that really helps for the long-term sustainability and viability of the show. And we'd really like to branch out. We're already on 2 stations now, and we'd like to get on in other areas in Montgomery and Birmingham and Memphis and Chattanooga and Nashville, the Shoals, we'd like to be all over the Tennessee Valley. And so the more listener support we get, the more likely that is. And if you're in one of those areas and you're connected with some organizations that might want to sponsor an ad or help us get on a station in that area, definitely reach out to us. David and I are both on Twitter as well. Jacob M_AL is where you can find me on Twitter for my hot takes. And David has got the really spicy, the really fire accounts. Radical Unionist @ Radical Unionist, RADICL Unionist. So you should follow him. Follow us on Twitter, the Facebooks, the YouTubes, stuff like that. And
what are the two radio stations and what areas do they cover if people want to tune in?
On Saturdays, we're on WVNN in the Huntsville, Athens, Decatur listening area. That's 92.5 FM. And it goes from just south of Tennessee state line down to roughly Coleman area, Coleman, Nelson. And then WGOL on Sundays, and that on Saturdays 9:30 to 11 a.m. and then on Sundays it's in WGOL, and that's kind of a smaller station in the Russellville area. The show gets replayed on Sundays.
8 a.m. on Sundays it comes on in Russellville on 100.7 FM WGOL.
The Labor Gospel Hour.
Yeah, it's a country music. WGOL's. It's funny. WGOL's a country music station. At least WVNN like half makes sense because it's at least like a talk station. It's a conservative talk station, but it's a talk station nevertheless. So don't listen to it when we're not on because it's totally trash.
Well, Rush Limbaugh's dead, so that's something to look for. That's something to be.
Yeah, he's not on the station anymore. He's not.
He's on the station in hell.
Yeah, but WGOL's like a country station, and so you'll be listening to like Tim McGraw, and then all of a sudden you get me and David start yelling about unions. So.
All right, y'all. Well, once again, thanks for being on, and I'm gonna sign us out real quick. And Tyler's got after I do the outro, Tyler's got a special message for one of our super fans before he does his catchphrase. So at Dixieland the Proletariat, we believe the South will rise again, but this time for the right reasons, those being worker-owned means of production, decolonization, and self-determination for all oppressed peoples. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to us on social media at Dixie Prole. We are coming to you from the birthplace of the civil rights movement, Montgomery, Alabama, as well as the United Kingdom. We would also like to recognize that we're recording on occupied land that rightfully belongs to the Muskogee Nation. Tyler?
All right, this one goes out to our good friend Laurel. Good Lord willing and the creek don't rise. We'll see you next time. Thank you.